I'm not sure if you are familiar with the research here or on Buddhism, if there are any issues you want to raise.
Yes, I do. First, Professor Schneider, I would like to say you are very admirable. I have seen your introduction on the internet before. You are an internationally renowned historian. As a German people, you can actually speak Chinese so incredibly fluently, which I truly and greatly admire and respect. You haven't forgotten German and speak English and Mandarin fluently, which I want to say I particularly admire. I am wondering the Göttingen Library today, we can see with over 400 years of history, houses a vast collection of ancient books since dating from the 17th century, which is amazing. Meanwhile, it is known that in modern civilization, Germany should be the country that has actually won the most Nobel Prizes. So as a native German speaker, it has preserved its ancient traditions. You see in Göttingen that many houses are over 100 years old, which is something very rare somewhere else. We notice that in terms of material things outside, there is both an ancient tradition that's very well preserved. In the modernization, there have also been such truly remarkable scientific advancements in recent years. What kind of approach do Germans take? Because now, in many countries, either they're over-conservative, quite traditional, or too open, have no ancient traditions or customs left. Not talking elsewhere, Germany adopted what, from a cultural perspective, methods and what approaches to allow new and old to merge and coexist, the new and old to complement each other and move together. What I've seen this time is only the external aspect inferred from natural and social sciences and architecture and the book as well. Another question is, from the German people's perspective, are the ancient traditions and the new ideas of today also integrated so well? These two just...
I actually think that Germany hasn't done a very good job of this integration. After the war, basically, as you might expect, there was a significant rupture in Germany's science and culture during that period. Culturally, present day and pre-war Germany are different in many ways, positive and negative aspects. It's not necessarily a bad thing. What we see now, cultural relics are well preserved. It relates to the wars. Too many things were completely destroyed. Basically, less than 10% of Germany's relatively valuable pre-war houses remain. Everything bombed. Relics protection is also about rebuilding the country, serving as both a meaningful purpose and a strong motivation. If you go to like Frankfurt and Berlin, you'll realize that these cities, comparing the photos from pre-war, have become completely different. Pre-war things, except for some rebuilt streets downtown, the rest are simply new. This as well is a direct and inevitable consequence of history. So the Germans protect relics quite thoroughly, because what left compared to the pre-war is already limited. Science development has changed. Before the war, Germany was extremely renowned for its science. This had nothing to do with Germany's politics, nor does its culture, ethnicity, but rather it linked to Germany's historical and geographical position at that time. Because from the Middle Ages onward, up to before World War II, it was basically the central region of all of Europe. Going north, south, west or east, you simply had to pass through Germany. In terms of culture and intellectuals, Germany's pre-war culture incorporated many cultural elements from outside, integrated Jews from Eastern, studied from France and Britain as well. So at that time, Germany was basically a country absorbed influences from many different cultures. That's why before the war, there were so many famous scientists it wasn't just Jews who had foreign backgrounds. The Chinese historical academia during the Republican era, the historians Fu Xinyan and Ying Keqian studied in US and Germany. At that time, in the 1920s, two-thirds of the professors at Humboldt University in Berlin were Jewish. After the war, they either fled to the United States or had already died after the war. Germany actually had no way to continue inheriting this scientific tradition. Germany does well in natural science because economic development requires these technologies. However, in the field of humanities, while, how to say, it's barely satisfactory, we can say, while not completely severed from previous traditions, most of it has been largely broken. I think this kind of protection of cultural relics and culture has actually been quite successful. But behind it, there is also failure. The cultural development of Germany, in particular, in the years following the war, politically saying, is of course so much better than before, truly improved. But, when it comes to culture, as we might say, well, to be even more precise, it's a kind of decline, a kind of degeneration. Pre-war Germany had many distinctive features and developments in music, literature, and philosophy in each field. Even in philosophy alone, now only a few people remain. Pre-war German had influential schools of thought, which were later inherited by French academia. Lyotard, Derrida, Foucault, the well-known French philosophers and scholars in our modern society, the master in philosophy and culture, all wrote doctoral dissertations at that time studying pre-war German philosophy indeed. In fact, when it comes to reflecting on modern ways of life, especially in our daily lives, pre-war Germany developed at an extremely rapid and truly impressive pace, whether it was the philosophers, such as Axel or Heidegger, for example, Neo-Kantianism as well. These schools of thought were all quite influential, but all of it disappeared after the war. The various different theories of these schools continued to develop further in France after the war. So from this particular example, you can also actually see cultural destruction from the two wars. It was truly largely immense. Perhaps there will be new development with its geographical position and its linguistic characteristics. It still slowly develops some new things. Now, though it's been 70 years since the war, it still hasn't reached that point. I still can't see in Germany's philosophy circles today any real opportunity for a full revival, right? Yes, there hasn't been any new development. The famous philosophers after the war were only Gadamer and Habermas. They were all educated before the war. After the war, basically, you could say essentially there were none left at all. You could look at this with a pessimistic attitude. This is really very bad indeed. But in reality, you just have to keep working at it and maybe gradually something new will emerge. The destruction, actually, 1949 to 1979, in mainland China, beginning with the May 4th movement, this kind of cultural destruction is impossible to reverse, to fix things back to original. Looking at Chinese-speaking world over the past 20 to 30 years, there have been many new developments encouraging. Germany is very similar. It also went through decades of destruction. Of course, this destruction is related to modernization, but there are also some historical factors beyond modernization. Of course, compared to the Cultural Revolution and the period after it in mainland China, compared to post-war, what we have achieved now is quite good. But if you compare it to German culture before the war, in the context of that time,
It's not optimistic at all, truly.
Germany is primarily now focusing on economic development, whether it's university and college education, scientific research, or cultural exchange. In many areas, not all, but many ultimately consider economic benefits as the main factor. This is very normal in modern life, a fairly natural thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing. So now, the last point is being modernized, being forcibly modernized. One of the reasons for this in Germany is education. Over the past 40 or 50 years, education has also taken the path of efficiency. Everything's about efficiency. More students, faster graduation overall, less money spent. For students, talent of quality, well...
Which is not considered.
It's not that we don't consider it, but not considered thoroughly.
That's true.
So this year, coincidentally, we have opened a new master's program called Modern Sinology, and we have only 2 students this year. My idea is 5 next year, the year after 7, the year after that 8, and over 20 after 5 years. They think 2 students, they may not offer this course. Education shouldn't be done this way. At least at the master's level, rarity makes value. Next, education is not invest today and profit tomorrow. Investing profit. This way of putting is already wrong. Education takes time and dedication, and maybe only after 20 years will you see results. Today's issue is
closely linked to many people's ideas about fast food.
In fact, people's way of thinking is fundamentally wrong. This problem isn't unique to Germany either.
Yes, it's the same in the Buddhist community. Many people hope to become famous or achieve success quickly. In reality, to reach the high level of accomplishment of the ancient is not that simple.
That's right. Moreover, these problems are not just the mindset of education bureaucrats. Our students have the same mindset. They enter university and find learning Chinese is difficult. They can't learn it well within 2 or 3 years. Bachelor's degree in Germany takes 3 years in general. I often tell them, just learn more slowly. It doesn't matter. Stretch those 3 years into 4. It's fine, even if you spend an extra year's tuition. As a student, expense isn't that much, but it allows you to learn better. They say, but then I'll be really old when I graduate. I tell them, you'll only be 21 when you graduate. Is that really old? They still continue to utilize this idea of speed and efficiency, such as in their processes to approach their education.